Yeah, so for this interview, I actually sat down with my roommate Adam. We've been staying together for several months now, and I've never really talked to him about news or such of what we talk in class. So I figured this would be a cool interview just to understand who I'm living with and how he sees news compared to I do. So without further ado, here's the interview. So thanks Adam for joining me. Let's just get right off to it. What is it like for you on a daily basis interacting with media?
On a daily basis, I mostly interact with media through social media. So with Twitter and Facebook, typically, I just check to see what's been going on because I follow a lot of sports and that type of thing. Or if there's any huge news stories, that'll always be on the Twitter trending. I also watch TV occasionally, but never really print sources like newspapers or anything like that.
So would you consider Twitter your go-to media source?
Yeah, Twitter's definitely the one I use the most because through the trending thing, I can see the big major events that are happening in the world or in sports or whatever I'm interested in that day. And then also through the accounts I follow, I can find more information about whatever I'm looking for.
So what role did the media play in your life while you were growing up, like in your childhood?
When I was growing up, it didn't play a huge role because I didn't pay too much attention to the news and I wasn't really on social media growing up until I got, to my teenage years and that type of thing. So growing up, it didn't have a huge impact because I never really focused on it. I'd never read the newspaper, never watched the news because it was all adult stuff, so I never really cared too much about it.
So would you say that media is playing more of a role in your life today than it did 5 years ago?
Absolutely. I'm much more involved with looking at media and have much more access to it now than I did before.
So turning from what kind of media into the quality and the logistics, the value of what media is today, do you think media today is credible?
Overall, I still think it is credible, even though there are a lot of fake news sources or just news sources that just have stories to make stories to get clicks. But overall, I think the media does is credible just because there's a lot of different news sources now reporting on it, so you can get the general idea of what actually happened or what is going on.
What media sources do you find most credible and why?
Most credible, honestly, I'd probably have to go with something like Fox, just because they've been around the longest, so they have the most experience with getting credible source or stories and how to carry them out, and not exaggerate too much one way or another. So that's probably the only main one that I pay attention to or have paid attention to.
So you just said most credible. What would you say is an example of something that's not that credible, something that you consider least credible?
Least credible, it's got to be CNN, because there's just been too many stories in the last few years about them just releasing completely fake news or having the story they're doing have nothing to do with the title, or just in general them exaggerating too much with the story and not telling the whole truth.
So I ask you, do you think it depends on the credibility for Fox and CNN, depending on what political party of president is in the White House? Do you think that changes the credibility based on whether it's a red or blue candidate that is currently running the country?
Absolutely. Whatever president or party that's in there, they're going to obviously lean more to, that side of the story, however it benefits them, which is why I think it's important to look at multiple news sources to try and see the extremes on both sides and try to draw a conclusion somewhere in the middle.
So what is fake news and how do you identify it?
I consider fake news reporting on a story and either exaggerating the details to make it seem way worse than it actually is, or just straight up adding your own personal opinion or take on it and making it seem like a completely different thing happened. The best way to identify it is, I don't really have a best way. It's just kind of like a gut feeling. If it just seems like it's way off and you start looking at other sources and it does seem way off, then it probably is. But I'd say just look at a bunch of sources.
So we kind of already mentioned this of how you're more immersed in the news just compared to 5 years ago you are today. Has there been any benefits or negative effects of the 24-hour news cycle 7 days a week?
As far as a benefit, I get, constant updates on anything that's going on. If there's any serious events or sporting events, whatever it is, I have constant updates on that. But I'd say the biggest negative to that is that when news sources just need to have something since it's 24/7, they will start making news out of things that are not newsworthy, or don't belong in the news and end up making, like, that's where, you know, fake news can kind of come in, just to make an interesting story to try and get people, you know, pay attention 24/7. And that's like the biggest downside of the 24/7 cycle.
So we kind of already discussed this when we were talking about Fox and CNN News. Do you think there's any bias in the media beyond that?
Yeah, there's definitely bias in the media. Like, however, like whatever the media source is, they're always, or most of the time, give their own take on it in any way that can benefit them and make them look like a more credible and reliable source, so that more people will recommend that news source and will eventually gain them more attention to benefit the company.
So what role or impact do you think media has on society? Like, is it able to turn society in a certain direction and focus them like almost like tunnel vision? Or are they not that powerful?
I definitely feel like it is that powerful, because once a news source reports on something, a lot of people can have a very strong feeling about it, and it can start whole movements in society just based on stuff that's been posted on social media, and that's where it really catches fire and starts exploding. So yeah, if a news source has, you know, something they're like strong about, and they have, you know, they can find either whether it's fake or real reasons to like be behind it, then it can definitely impact society and, you know, cause something to happen.
What role has media played in your life in terms of forming your opinions, creating stances on certain issues? Like, what has it done in terms of your opinions?
For the most part, I try to take media, you know, for what it is. And I know that, you know, since there's bias in all media, I try not to, you know, wholly base my opinion just on what I see from media. And I try to take, you know, what I see from multiple news sources and different media outlets and try to form my own opinions based on that, to try to get like a whole, like, well-rounded view on things.
Yeah, so thanks, Adam, for sharing your insight. I had a great time interviewing you. Just thank you for your answers.
Thank you for having me on here. It was a great time.
Yeah, so in my interview with Adam, I probably got, it was two big takeaways that I pulled from stuff we discussed in our interview compared to stuff we discussed in class. The first one is just the rise in importance of electronic media and social media in that sense, whether it be New York Times digital format, simply online news sources, whether it's Fox, CNN, etc. But just news is most likely going to be read by at least the upcoming generations, and kind of leaking into the older generations of an online format. They're not going to get it in print. It's going to be on, like Adam mentioned, Twitter's his go-to source, Facebook, etc. Just an online source, a .com, a .edu, and so on. Like the skin is what, like, one of the things we discussed in class. There's not a lot of going out to get the newspaper, having the newspaper thrown onto your front porch. That's not something that's prominent in the world today. And I saw that, and we talked about that between me and Adam. My other big takeaway is the role that media has in society. So one of the questions I asked him is, what role do you think media has? Is it able to change people's minds, make them look a certain way? And we both agreed on the sense that media does. It can form opinions for people. It's what provides information on issues that face the world today. So, and you make your decisions based on information you get. So the information that is provided is what's going to help make your opinion. And if you only provide so much information, that's the opinion you're going to have. So we discussed just how media, they don't necessarily hold our opinions, but they play a big part in forming them. And with that, they can not control society, but influence society in a way they might possibly want to do it, because there is bias. So just the idea that media isn't something that, if was immediately lost, wouldn't notice the difference. Media is a big part of society today, and if it was lost, there would be definitely a difference. So those were the two big takeaways I got from the interview. Through electronic media is upcoming, and that's really where you need to put your money in. And then also the power of media in society in terms of forming opinions on certain issues, what facts are coming out about certain issues, and so on. But all in all, it was a great project. I had fun interviewing Adam. Probably built our relationship to be a little bit stronger than what it even is by being roommates. We're actually living together next year. But those were just a couple things I found commonalities between my interview and what we discussed in class.